Double Masters is on the way, and it has a couple of reprinted Oathbreakers that will blow your mind. This is Chad welcoming you to Da Bomb Double Masters. In this series, I will be covering cards out of the Double Masters set. In this episode, I'm going to do a command review for one of the recently reprinted Planeswalkers, Karn Liberated, for the Oathbreaker format. If this is your first time here, I make Oathbreaker content, and if that's what you're into, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when we make new content for you. Before we start, my card evaluation in this video is based on the Oathbreaker's history, the monetary value of the card, how playable or played the card is in Oathbreaker. I will be assigning the card a letter grade at the end because they are easy to understand and evaluate. If you don't like my evaluation method, that's fine. Let me know in the comments below how you would do this differently. First things first, let's cover a little bit of Karn's background. Karn is one of the oldest and most enduring characters in the Magic the Gathering lore. Karn the Silver Golem is a Beast of Burden style golem that was given sentience when the emotional core of a Phyrexian sleeper agent named Zansha was installed into his chassis. Karn was built at the Tolarian College by an uncaring creator for the purpose of exploitation and experimentation, was mentored by the kind Baron that you may recognize from the most recent Core 2021 series, and was best friends of Joyra of the Gitu, a student at the school at the time. Karn was built for the singular purpose of time travel experimentation, since Silver can travel through time for some reason. Much has happened to Karn since his inception as a character, including the rise and fall of a plane of his own creation. And if you want the full details of Karn's history, then please check out the lore series made by Fantasy Geographic. I will put a link to the first video in the series in the corner. So for our first section, Karn is a well-liked character who has a lot of Magic history. And I don't know about you, but I like to build around characters that mean something to me. And for that, I'm going to give it a pretty decent rating. But hell, I'm just an MTG paper boomer. So for lore, I'm going to give Karn Liberated a solid 5 out of 5. Next, let's look at the monetary value of Karn Liberated as a reprint. As a budget player, sometimes I pray at night to the Rosewater on high that we will get a reprint that will lower the value of cards, making them easier to play and obtain for our formats. In Double Masters, we are getting not one, but two such reprints of Karn. One in his original kind of style art that you may recognize probably from one of the Mirrodin sets, but it has been reprinted since then. And the second, this beautiful box topper art. Now, it is worth mentioning here that this box topper art is highly memeable, as he is a dancy little boy in this art. It is also worth mentioning that this art is part of a panorama tied together with the Urza's lands, and this directly ties into Karn's background as a character as well, and I think that's a great touch. Now, normally we would expect a reprint of this kind to lower the price of the cards, but sadly, at the time of this recording, the price of Karn Liberated is still hanging around $30, with the box topper art being closer to $90, which does not bode well for this card's growth or play in the Oathbreaker format. It is, however, a good sign that the card is holding some value if you are vested in Magic, but since this is an evaluation based on play, for monetary value, I'm going to be giving this a 3 out of 5. Next, let's look at Karn critically as a card to see if he has a home in your Oathbreaker decks. On edh.oathbreaker.com, there are currently only 5 Karn Liberated deck lists. And that should tell you something about our shiny boy's playability. First, as I demonstrated in my Father's Day deck tech, Karn the Great Creator, it can be very expensive to build around a colorless Planeswalker, even on a budget. This is in no small part due to the cost of wastes, which are our only option for a colorless basic land. All colorless decks, including Karn, also suffer from a lack of signature spell options, which is a pretty hard checkmark in the con column of whether or not you should choose him as your Oathbreaker. Karn's cost of 7 generic mana is actually pretty average for a removal card in colorless, and it can be considered fairly costed if your opponents sleep on it and let you use his abilities more than once. But since his last ability is a you win the game with extra steps, it is not uncommon to see him removed early and often with prejudice. One of the only things people hate more than losing is losing against their own cards. Going back to Karn's 7 generic mana cost, it is still no small feat for us to overcome as a deck builder, as this will require us to run a decent amount of ramp and mana rocks to even attempt to be competitive. In doing so, we will also be missing out on potential synergies and options for the deck that those card slots are taking up. Looking at this card through this lens, it is no wonder why many of the other colorless Planeswalkers see higher play in our format. As a colorless Planeswalker though, Karn can help with problematic permanents in the 58 of many other decks, as he can be included without having to worry about your commander's color identity. However, his cost of 7 may still include him as a choice as well. So, looking at all those, I believe the playability for Karn Liberated in Oathbreaker is maybe a 1 out of 5. There's just a lot of better options than this particular printing of Karn, and he doesn't really find much of a home in other Oathbreaker decks. So, with a final score of 5 out of 5 in lore, 3 out of 5 in monetary value, and 1 out of 5, oh that hurts, in playability, Karn Liberated has an average score of about 60%, meaning that he has about a D grade as to whether or not he's valuable to our format. Now, if you love Karn, certainly build around him, but understand that you probably would be better suited playing him as a casual than playing him as a competitive Oathbreaker, and just enjoy the journey and maybe do something more themed. Now that I have evaluated Karn Liberated from the Double Masters reprints, what other cards do you think I should review? And what Double Master cards are you most excited to hold in your hands and play with? If you like any of the cards in this video, including our memeable little Golem, check out my LGS, Mythic Games Colorado. I will put a link in the description. If you are interested in Oathbreaker, please check out the playlist here, or if you want to see a video YouTube has curated for you, then check out the video link below it. Thanks again. I can't make these videos without you, and I wouldn't, so please remember to subscribe, and I hope this video blew your mind.